Well, that was fun. Welcome to another fun episode of the Chambler Project. This is episode number 35, and I make a ton of progress, and quite a few of my friends come over to help me do so. So without further ado, let's get to it. Thanks for watching. Now that the firewall is completed, I can finally clean this mess up and start on the inner fender wells. And maybe I can find the little foam cover for the microphone that I lost the second I put it on out here. Let's get to it. Well, that's a lot better, and I found the little tiny cap for the microphone. Gonna have to clean it before I use it, but found it. I'm gonna start the inner fender repairs where I left off on the driver's side right here. I'm also gonna finish that cap right here. Gotta figure out what I'm doing with that. I'm gonna trim this, get this area prepped, level out some of the stuff, cut some of the other stuff. Generally trim it and get it prepped, and then I'll show you what I'm gonna have to do the very next thing. Unfortunately, this strut tower directly interferes with the mooster. Hey! Unfortunately, the strut tower directly interferes with the brake booster assembly in the master, and he bent the lines to the point where they wouldn't work, so I'm going to have to cut this area out. I thought I was going to go ahead and cut it all the way out, but I think I'm going to try to make a brace out of it at some point, because I think this is going to be somewhat weak even with restructuring it. I'm going to trim it, leaving as much as I can, get it in here, make sure it works. If it doesn't, worst case, I'll just move this stud mount back. Like I mentioned, before I start anything down here, I'm going to have to go ahead and cap this off. I'm going to trim it on this Blue Magic marker line, but first I got to trim some of this up and give me some space to get the equipment in here and get this capped off. This is the first part of my little cap. This little guy slides in. That's going to link this outer piece to the inner piece, and then I'm going to put a cap around it. I'll show it to you from the inside. I'm going to weld it in. I'll fold this lip over once I get it into position and in place, because it doesn't want to go back into position with it folded in both spots. So, whee! The end cap is welded in. I've started making templates for the next couple pieces around here, so I'm going to cut those out and get to fitting. I have the cap piece fit, and it's now cut to size. I will trim the rest of it as I need to. I don't really need it to be 100%. I want it to follow this line and curve, because I want to be able to be nice and strong for this cap and for the pieces that come in here. Go ahead and clean this up, prep it, and weld it. Cap is all the way welded in. I trimmed it up, get it to meet here, and it flows pretty smoothly here. I'm not worried about it matching anything. I just want it to be nice and consistent. Then I will start fitting this panel tomorrow morning. It's going to be fun. I'm going to start fitting this piece right here, but to do that I first got to do a couple more things in here. Trim a little bit of this out, trim a little bit of this out. I've made a cap piece in here, which I'll show you when I get to welding it. I'm going to do a few things first. Friends are coming over in a little bit, so there'll be a lot of moving around everything, hopefully. I made this little brace. It's going to go right in here. That's going to give me some strength, so I can go ahead and finish this all off. I'm likely going to cap this off, grind this flat, and have these two surfaces meet, curve this, and do something about this corner as well, which you kind of can't see. I'll show it to you when we get there. First step is this, then the plate here, then I'll start capping this off. This might be one of the last things because I still need to make this cap piece. That cap piece. I guess get whatever you can off, like especially from the top down, and then we'll clean it and see where we're at. And sure. I don't need spick and span, I just want it to look okay. And if there's a problem, I'd like to find it now rather than down the road. Considering I have to drive this thing 800 miles, I kind of need to know it's in one relatively halfway non-craptacular shape. I'm going to keep fabricating crap. James and Derek are going to keep cleaning things, which I greatly appreciate because I'm never going to have time to do that crap. The next couple weeks or videos, you're going to see them helping me do stuff. They're going to help me wire things, hopefully. It all depends on how much beer and pizza I have available to feed them with. So I'll bring you back in if we do something entertaining or stupid.
I need a pair of ice grips.
Scalpel.
I can feel it out, man. I can feel it out.
Gets it on, and since that's snapped off, I'll have to go get another bolt before I put a water pump on. Let's go to the junkyard and grab one.
You know, rear differential plugs, so they got that creates insert. I stripped one out, and my boss goes, "Yeah, we were waiting for you to do that." I go, "Well, yeah, I could have prevented this." He goes, "Yeah, but we're trying to teach you." I was like, "Wow." He goes, "Always tighten first. Anytime you have a drain plug like that on an axle or a main trans, tighten first, 1/4 turn, then undo." I said, "That doesn't make any sense." He goes, "Yeah, it does." I said, explain. He goes, with the fluid inside, when you turn it in, that thread grabs some fluid, and then when you turn it out, it lubricates the thread on the way out. I'm like, okay, whatever, it just works. I don't know if your theory's right, but well, I did the same thing here, right? Which I know we broke it off, but I was like, tighten first there. I know you don't want to, but do it. So, but right now I'm just exercising that thread. Can't rob any more parts off your spare engines.
It's easier for me to go to the junkyard than to try to drag the engines out from where they're hiding at the moment.
Right? Yeah, except every bolt I have. I got pins of bolts, but they don't actually have a lot of metrics
I have
that
a
actually
lot.
look like that, I should say.
Well, those aren't metric anyway.
Yep. SAEs.
It's Chrysler or Jeep's half and half.
This is AMC.
Well, yeah, this motor architecture is technically from the late 50s, early 60s. It's effectively not a lot changed, but there are definitely some parts that are similar between the 232s all the way up to these. You know, I need to go to the junkyard anyway, and I've got bolts, but everything is so packed in here. Until I get this out, I don't have access to a lot of stuff.
Right.
Unfortunately, one of the bolts in the water pump broke off. So
Very good.
I'm able to get it out, thankfully.
Yeah.
One broken bolt.
James has his valve cover bolts off, so let's see what's underneath. Let's see how bad this is or isn't. That's actually really, really clean. I'm happy, very, very happy. That's actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was a little worried there. Yeah, that's much better than what I'm driving every day. Like that's not a lot of, I really did expect it to be much nastier. So he likely cut up a fairly low-ish mile Cherokee to make this thing.
You want to clean this a little bit, right? And not too badly.
Yeah, you know, the basic manual surface stuff to clean the valve cover or the valve top, clean the valve cover, whatever you guys can get around to doing. I'm assuming it's directional, but I don't know for sure. There's pins. Yeah. Does it look right on your side? On the other side, James? It just in the back it isn't the same. The holes are in the right place, but the gasket looks like it's out of place. The Cherokee's weird because certain spots look blue. I think the car was blue, but other spots look green. I mean, I truly am 6 weeks behind, if not more. Because I didn't expect to have to do half the stuff. I figured it'd be a month of doing the floors, and it was 2. Can't fix, you know, I can't walk away from it.
No. But that's it.
Yeah, it's
Some of the stuff would be harder to go back to.
Well, that's what I told one of the guys. He's like, "Why are you still doing it?" It's like, everything I don't do now, I'll never get done, or it'll be 4 times harder to do it. It's going to have multiple iterations. It's going to become a manual transmission. It's likely going to get a V8, and it's likely going to get it lifted. But I can't do that now. I can't afford it, time-wise and money-wise. It has to be done middle of next month at the absolute worst, because, dude, it's almost 800 miles one way by myself. I can't do that in a car that I haven't tested.
Right.
I just can't. Beyond that, there's just the simple fact of I've only got so much budget, and if I'm running right up against a ragged edge every month, if this thing takes some massive hit, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm looking for a heater core. I can't not have heat in this thing. The factory one was junk. I can't reuse it. And the one from the Cherokee was way too big to use. They make cheap ones. Vintage Air makes a nice one, but they're 300 something bucks.
I just get a generic bus heater.
Oh, Amazon has a lot of them like that. They have a universal fit. They're all the same, but they're like anywhere from $50 to $100. It's just pick the one that has the weirdest. They all have the same problems. They all have case issues. The blowers are weak, and the switches break the minute you use them. Okay.
Perfect.
So let's figure out which one is in the budget and I like.
Yeah, right.
Well, they're all coming from the same place.
Yeah.
Magnesium?
Probably. A lot of them, just from the naming convention either. No, I mean from the naming convention, it's more than likely something out of China. All right, so this is my friend James, who you haven't seen before this video. That's my friend Derek, who you have seen before. He's in the trike video and some of the other stuff. So they'll be back here and there to help me get this pile of, moving.
Stuff.
So big, huge thanks. I don't have the time to do it, and they're more than capable of doing the stuff that they did for me today, which is awesome. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Can't see me.
There's, oh God. I'm being demonetized probably for, you copyright infringement right there, sloganing. What is it with you and the shaggy hair? I've known you for 20-something years. You've never not had a haircut. Has he ever not had his hair trimmed neatly?
It's the last hurrah, man.
Let him have it. At least he still has some on top. I don't.
What are you talking about, James?
Why do you think I cut mine off?
Well,
You cut yours short.
2.5 years of steroids, this is what happens.
You haven't even gone into a rage yet.
No, I'm off them now. That's calmed down. I was ragey and hungry for 2.5 years. See you guys later. Well, we got the water pump off. I'm going to grab a bolt tomorrow at the junkyard. That'll allow me to get the water pump on this next week. Valve cover gaskets on, grounds are on, PCV valves on. Everything is cleaned up. It's probably going to be real hard to tell, but there was a absolute ton of crap in here, and it's 90% of it's gone, which is awesome. And like you saw in the earlier video, I'm severely impressed by how clean the inside of the engine is. I really did not think it was going to be that way. I was definitely worried. Things are looking pretty good. Still got some stuff to handle, but it's good progress, and I can't thank my friends enough for coming by. It was a great day. My friends helped me out immensely. I was able to get this big panel in and that small reinforcement panel in there. Next project is to go ahead and trim this down, get it even, get this capped off here, then I can go inside and start working on that. Want a little more structure to it, then I will move forward and get the junk you can't see, which is going to be a little more complicated. There's more big open spaces to fill. I'm very, 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 very happy. I'm going to go ahead and clean up a little bit more of this area since it's open and it's going to be the only time I've got to do it. Then I'm going to need to scale as much of the junk off of this area because I'm going to need to start welding on it and cut that bumper piece off. Well, all the crap is off. I got a little carried away and also took a bunch of paint off. I'll show you that now. I didn't expect to take the paint off. I just figured I hit a couple of spots where I know I'm going to have to weld the Rambler body to the Cherokee chassis, and paint started coming off, so it's just screw it. I'll hit all this stuff with the Scotch-Brite. I'm likely going to paint this front paneling, this area, a green to sort of, because you'll see through at least some extent when the body panels are on, so match-ish with the green. Everything in here is going to be black, and everything in the inner fenders is going to be black along with the suspension. So I'm trying to find a good source to have some brush on. I'll likely do some of the chassis paint that's local and expensive. It really depends. I'm bad with a brush, but we'll see how it goes. I went ahead and trimmed this edge up to give me more space. I made this little bracket. I'm going to stick this inside here and give me some inner strength, and I can start removing other things and try to plate this as even as humanly possible. Went ahead and cleaned up all this area, resized it. I went ahead and made this plate. It's going to sit in here. I'm going to weld it in this bottom here, and then I'm going to plug it in and form it as I go. It isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be strong. This is more that 16 gauge material. I didn't expect this to form as well as it did. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up real quick, throw some tacks on this bead, figure out what I can do to reform this to match this as closely as I can, and dress the bottom part once I get this kind of together. I have everything formed and welded so that it's as good as it's going to get. I made this little panel, and it will fit for the most part. I'm going to have to probably address this edge and form it. Once this is welded up, I'm going to have to cut it off and make it a little plate to cap between this panel and this panel. Let's see how it goes. Let's get it welding. I welded this up as far as it can go. I'm going to have to go ahead and cut this on the vertical and cut this line here. That'll allow me to fold it over, and I should be able to pinch it all together. It's still going to be a little off, but it'll be nice, especially once I grind it up. You won't see too much of it. That cut's going to work well. It'll allow me to form this over, butt these together, and I will butt weld them So a lot of butts. And then I'll grind everything down, make it as smooth as I can. I went ahead and put the radiator back in because I needed to make sure that I'm sizing this panel in here that's going vertical to there correctly. So I'll show you what my thought pattern is. I'm going to make a panel that basically mimics this, butts up there. I got to come in through here and trim this stuff and flatten it out, flatten this piece out. And then I should be able to actually mount this, leaving the hardware in. And as soon as I'm done there, I can pull this hardware out. I'll likely make a top strap up to this flat portion where the radiator mounts, but I wanted to make sure there was clearance. And there should be more than adequate clearance. And make sure whatever panel I put here gives me more than enough space to get the hoses on to the lower radiator mount. So it's going to be interesting. Hoping to make this as simple as I can. I think I'm going to make L brackets on this face, and something along this face once I clean it up, so that I can just put a plate in here and just be as done with it as humanly possible without trying to reform everything, because this, I gotta keep moving. I'm losing way too much time. Then I'll come in here and cut this off. I'm likely just going to go ahead and cut the whole thing off and possibly move this back into here and put a panel straight down, because there's no reason to keep trying to reinvent the wheel. First thing's going to be to clean up that area, and then I will get to making this and fitting it. I just hit some of these spots with weld through primer, so while I'm waiting, I'm going to go ahead and pull the thermostat housing off and get this all cleaned up and get ready to put the water pump and thermostat back on in the housing. I don't want to snap these bolts, so I'm going to take my time. Get the fan blade out of my way. I do love that the fan is just in the wrong spot. Cherokees are weird because they have that offset fan and then small size radiator. Let's see how well this is stuck on there. Oh, not that bad. I never reuse these, like I said in one of my Cherokee videos. They're cheap enough to get, and they're just, it's just not worth the trouble. Let's see if it says in temp range. No. That does. It's a 190. I always put 180s in. I put lower temp in if possible, but 180 does the trick. Clean this surface off and get the new parts ready. And do some welding. It's going to be a mixed bag day. This is everything I've got in the last week or two for my Chambler project. Valve gasket, which my friend James already put on. Water pump, lower radiator hose, water pump neck tube that goes over and around the block, which you have to put on first. Sensor, thermostat housing, thermostat, radiator cap, thermostat housing gaskets, spring isolators, because the ones that are on are shot. That's also something I'm going to have to do. U-bolts, fan belt, and a new radiator. The U-bolts are for the springs I also got, which I'll show you now. I ended up getting heavy-duty factory leaf springs. I couldn't afford to get a lift at this point, and I don't know what height it's going to need to be anyway. Everything in the back is kind of screwed up. The stock axle from the two-door Cherokee that I transplanted in here should be square. I'm going to use that to line everything up. Weld the new brackets on, take everything apart, and then set the height with the new springs. The rear ride height is going to determine the front ride height as well. I don't have as much clearance for the inner wheel tubs and the fender arches on the rear, the way the fenders are cut. So how that ends up is going to determine what I end up doing with ride height for the front. I plan is still to stick 31s on it, which will be pretty big for this vehicle. All depends. So we will see as we're going. Water pump, thermostat housing, thermostat, and the tube for the heater core are all in place. I'll put the temperature sensor in once I torque them down in about an hour, once the adhesive sets for all the silicone on the gaskets. This is a calamity of errors. I had a lot of little problems. Thankfully it all went smooth once everything was on, but ooh boy, I think I remember after, it was only about 4 months since I did it last time, but the sealant I like to use for gaskets that go in the cooling system didn't work so well. I ended up having to cut the tube open because the stem hardened inside of itself. Thankfully that was still good. But it should seal up well. I'll bring it back when I torque everything, and then I can move on to welding again. I've waited an hour to let this stuff set up, so we're going to go ahead and torque everything down. I do have to start sealing on some of these fasteners, simply because one or two of them go into a water area, water jacket, whatever you'd like to call it. So I just put a little bit on all of them. I'm just not willing to take the risk. I'm going to go ahead and install the temp sensor now and cap off the inlets because I don't want anything getting into it. I still got more work to do before the hoses go onto it. That bracket's all welded in. I pulled the bolts. I'm going to grind this upper lip material out of there, and I'm going to make another bracket that folds up and cinches down on this side. So give me a lot more strength in this area. It's 16 gauge, it'll stay nice and strong. I'm going to grind that, make the bracket, weld it in, and then I'm going to start cleaning this edge up and get the other brackets in here. I formed this bracket up, drill the holes in it. It's going to go basically right there. I'm going to hit everything with weld through primer and get it on. Like I said before, I'm just going to go ahead and cut this straight off, cut this whole piece off, and let it fall and flat plate it, and then I can move on to doing this stuff because I need some more material and I need to figure out where I'm at for this corner right here. So I'm just gonna cut it off. Worst case, I will transfer this to here because I still would like to do some kind of strut brace, but it's not a humongous priority at the moment. I can always cut this out, just put it under here, and if I use it, I use it. If I don't, I don't. Well, here goes nothing. Well, that was fun. I've got lots more room now for activities. My welds are no great shakes, but basically I'm about 2 hammer blows away from popping this entire brace off. Yeah. There was no prep work at all. And granted, I don't doubt this was probably flux core, because I don't think stick would be like this, but man. The front one's a little more solid. It's being more of a pain in the butt, but yeah, that one's kind of a mess. But the fact that it's a mess means I have a lot less work to just clean up that general area. I made the first piece of the framework so I can hopefully put a lighter gauge in the middle in here. So this bad boy is going to go right here. I'm going to hit weld through primer and get it in. I've got the next spot on the inner fender prepped and ready to go. Just waiting for the weld through primer to dry. So while I'm waiting, I'm going to go ahead and clean out all the junk from the inside of the strut tower and get that ready to start welding it as well. I'm going to slide this little bracket up in here, and then I will start welding this bad boy in. That'll give me a place to tie all this together, figure out what I'm doing with this edge and down here, which you might not be able to see, and then I will do this vertical face like I mentioned. My buddy Derek's back again. He's checking the radiator for make sure it fits and installing some of the new parts I got on it, like those isolators. Yeah, I don't know why he bent these off and up and over. Derek's fixing them right now. We're going to flatten them out and weld them back onto the frame. Don't know why he did that. He did it on both sides. Made a flat piece to cover this area. It's basically going to go like so. I made 4 brackets to help me hold it in place, and then I'll grind it all to match, and then I'm going to take my time and weld the whole thing around. This is my friend Jason. He's come over to help me as well. My friend James will be in this part of the video as well as my buddy Derek. He's probably going to be sprinkled in here and there. He couldn't come over today. He was over yesterday. Jason's going to go ahead and cut some of the brackets that the guy had welded onto the bumpers so I can get him in position once I get the front end done. You'll be seeing likely a hodgepodge of segments cut together. It all depends on how it flows in the videos. But this is Jason. Subscribers, Jason. I call him Wojo.
And we're gonna hack and whack, and those brackets will be off like a prom dress.
Yeah, he's got some funny sayings, but it'll be interspersed. A bunch of my friends will be over in the next couple weeks. Hopefully, Jason and I can con him in. You know, pizza and beer goes a long way. So, Jason, Derek, and a whole bunch of other guys will be in it, including James and hopefully Ryan again to weld some other stuff on. So keep watching, and we'll get back to work.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
What he said.
Unfortunately, everybody had to leave, but Jason got the brackets cut off the bumper. You can see where they were by what's left of the cuts on both sides. That was a big help. So I've got this thing fully ground and welded in. He came back through and ground the chunks out that were left over from the braces. I'm working on getting this panel in. That's next, and I should hopefully be able to do this in 1 or 2 more panels. We're done with this, start on the passenger side. James got all the power steering equipment back on, pulleys and belts, so that's all ready to go. I got that big piece welded in last night. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go ahead and fit this little guy right here, and then I'll start working my way down. Well, I fabricated the next piece. This little guy is going to go like so. Clamp this down, then I'll start making this cap, and I'll work my way down here, which you probably can't see too much of. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in. This little corner worked out real well. That's the last piece I welded in, and I'll show you that once I get more of this done. This piece is in. I'm going to go ahead and throw this piece up in here. There's going to be some fitting I'm going to have to do to it once I get it locked into place. I'll have to bend and form this ear to meet this back section right here. And put the radiator back in the Chambler so I can make sure that when I make this bottom piece that it works out well. So I've got the bases formed. I'm going to get the other pieces done because I know that nothing's going to hit the radiator at this point. I'll figure out what I'm going to do in this section, and I'm going to make a little bend down here to cap off this edge. Now this piece is formed and made. I ended up welding an ear on this side. And it's going to go right up in here. Then I'll make some kind of capper for this little section right here. Get this get this welded in. Is that right? This is the last piece I'm going to be able to get to tonight. This little edge is going to get welded in, and I'll grind it up and get it to meet. This little guy's going to come up underneath and cap this piece off. There's one more piece I'll have to make. This is where I'm going to stop tonight. Sorry you can't see too much of it. I'll try to get you another angle when I'm not yabbering on. And like I said, I'll trim this up once I get it all welded in and get it to smooth out. But I wanted this cap piece in there. The last heavily formed piece is in. I radius this edge to make everything meet and fit nicely. I made this one last little piece. It fits right there. I'm going to get to welding it. Everything else is done. I'm down to my last little bracket. This is going to go up in here. I'm going to weld that in, and then this driver's side is completely, well, it's as done as it's going to be. We'll go with that. And with that little strut tower brace, this entire driver's side is complete. There'll be little spots I have to touch up with some added weld here and there, but I'll get that once I start working on the passenger side, get that stuff cut and ready to be welded. I'm happy. I wish it didn't take as long as it did, but it did. But now it's complete. So happy dance. The big question is, am I going to get this done in time? And the answer is, I don't care, I have to. The fabrication is the big thing that's holding me back. Once I get the inner fenders done, I can have my buddies come over and actually really pound away on wiring, fenders, front sheet metal, all the stuff that needs to be done up here. Then I can keep going through in the back, get the dashboard in, get all that stuff running, and that can get wired, and then I can focus on the suspension and the trunk. Do as much as we can. Is it going to be 100% the way I wanted it? No. Is it going to be functional? Yes. Worst case, it'll come down on a trailer, but I need this thing to drive because I've only got so much money. It's also a money thing and time. I have some time. I got no money, so something's going to have to give. But keep watching. We'll get it there. Even if I have to push it. Sykeston's like 750 miles. away. Yeah. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next episode. Apparently I need to get shorter.